What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. In this episode, we are back in the shop with the F450, and we are installing a bunch of Torklift products to get our Arctic Fox 1150 tied down safely to our 2022 F450. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Torklift for always supporting the channel and sponsoring today's video. Let's go check out what we got. If you guys haven't seen our last video, make sure you go check that out. We do a full walk around of this truck. It is a 2022 F450 Platinum. We bought it used here in Arizona at Earnhardt Ford. We've owned it for a few months and so far we've loved it. We have had a 2012 as well as a 2017 F250, so we are very familiar with the platform. We do plan on doing a full severe duty build out on this truck, 3-inch lift kit, fenders, super singles, the whole nine. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like the videos, that's how you can support us if you want to see that upcoming content. We got all of our Torklift parts laid out here. You can see they sent us just about everything they offer for the F450. We've got the Super Hitch, we've got the North Hitch. Those are the Super Hitch brackets. Those are the turnbuckle tie downs. We've got the Super Truss, the dual extension that goes into the Super Hitch, and over here we've got the front tie down that we're about to install. We've got our brackets here, we've got all of our hardware. Torklift does send these fishers because we are going to have to fish some hardware through some of these holes, so let's get under here and get this bolted in. Alright, if we look under here on the frame rail, we have this hole, we have this hole, we have this hole, and we have that hole right there. So that's going to be the 4 mounting points for this bracket right there. So we got to use these fishers and we got to go in and out and then fish the hardware through. Alright, we've got this bolt fisher through here and we've got it threaded onto our bolt. And then we have one of these washers and then one of these plates up in this frame rail, and it's going to fall right on this bolt and it's going to come out this hole over here. So let's go ahead and put that up in there. Alright, so if you can see right there, we're going to leave it on because we don't want it to fall in, but we have that plate washer back there and that other washer, and we have our other fisher through this hole, so we're going to go ahead and get this bolt pulled next. Alright, we got a 2-inch bolt now. We're going to go into hole A here. So the plate goes on, and then the washer goes on, and then this threads on, which after you use them once, they don't work amazing. Alright, for this bottom hole, I've got the 2.5-inch bolts. I've got my washer and my plate on. I'm going to shove them up into the hole. And then pull it down through. So we've got 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so we've got our 3 bolts pulled through. Fishers are still on. We're going to run those fishers through some of these holes, but we have these big plates, and on 2 of the holes where the 2.5-inch bolts are, on the bottom and over here on the side, we need to fish these plates on first, and then the bracket goes on over those. Alright, this is the part where it's going to be really helpful if you have 2 people. I do not, so I'm going to do the best I can. The plate is already on that one. I have the other plate just resting here. So I have the fishers through this hole and through that hole. So we're going to get this all kind of set up in there. And then we're going to tighten some of this hardware just hand tight, just to get probably this bottom one first, just to get this bracket to be able to hold up in there, so then I can have an extra set of hands. Oh, all right. Oh, it is in. So now, let me try to get this bottom hardware on. Nice, okay. Now I can set that down and it'll hold itself up. All right, we're gonna get the hardware onto this one right now. We gotta still be really careful because once we take this fisher off, that hardware can fall in the frame rail. So I'm gonna take this fisher off and then I'm gonna put the hardware on as safely as I can to not let that bolt drop into the frame. All right, so now we got this one hand tight, we got that one hand tight, and this one. There's one more up there and you can get to it because you can get above the frame rail right here. So we're gonna grab this hardware, we're gonna get that one hand tight, and then these are all 19s. We're gonna tighten all of them down and torque them to 65. So we got our washer, we got our plate washer, our normal washer, and our lock washer, all in the right order. They go up there. All right, so that is all in. That wasn't too bad. So then what you do is you take this guy, you just run it in there, and then that front mount is installed. It does have another adjustment to be able to adjust it out if you need to, and what's nice is you can pull those pins and pull them out, and then it doesn't look like there's anything there for camper tie downs when you're just using the truck. I had already got this passenger side in just to figure out the order of operations, so that one is all installed and torqued down and ready to go. All right, we got the truck moved over into this bay so we have room to access the rear hitch. We've got our Super Hitch Magnum 30K here. Thing is massive. It's got the dual ports. Because this sticks out about 42 inches past the rear bumper. So we have the, I believe it's a 42 or a 48, I'm not sure. I'll have to take a measurement and see. The super truss, so there's two sections. There's a 2.5 and a 2-inch here. They both go in, and then they utilize these chains and everything to be able to hook a trailer up. I think you do have to use a weight distribution hitch depending on how heavy the trailer is as well on here, but it's a lot more heavy duty because it has the dual tubes that plug in. So let's go ahead and get the stock one out and get this one in. First thing is there's two 13mm right here that we're gonna pull off. All right, we're underneath the truck. We gotta get these 21mm nuts off on each side and remove this rear bumper. So we gotta kind of leave some threads on here just so the bumper doesn't fall when we go do the other side. But we're gonna get this rear bumper off now. All right, we got that bumper off. Right here, there is the electrical cord for the 7-way, and then right here, there's another wire, I think, for the backup sensors. So you have to undo those when you undo the bumper. But we got that off, so let's keep moving on. All right, next you're gonna wanna grab a 24mm socket. There's 2 bolts on top there, 2 bolts on top there. You're probably gonna need a big breaker bar because they're pretty tight. We're gonna take those 4 bolts out. All right, we got the other side off, so let's go ahead and break these loose. They're tight. Okay, the breaker bar doesn't fit in there. So we're gonna have to use our cheater bar. Jeez. Okay, up underneath the truck you can see there was 2 there, and then there is 2 right up in there, and then the same on the other side. I already took that side off. I have the jack sitting here. Hopefully that holds it well enough. I just have these last 2 in here I'm gonna get off, and then we'll drop this out. All right, last one. Okay, it's out. It's gonna sit there. Let's lower this jack down. And you have to disconnect all these wire looms from the side too. Make sure you do that. Yep, see, and then these two right here that go through it have to be actually unplugged altogether. Nice. All right, as you can see, we've started to go back together. We've got our side pieces for our hitch. They're hanging in there. Everything's just hand tight. You don't want to tighten any of this down yet because we got to put that on the jack and get it up in here and get it bolted in, which is what we're going to do now before you tighten any of these up. All right, as you can see, we kind of have it tentatively in there. You kind of have to move these things forward and slide the hitch in. The instructions don't tell you to lower the spare, but it won't go in with the spare all the way up. So you got to drop the spare down. I've got it all lined up, and then since this is kind of an all-in-one system, these are going to slot into the side and actually this way. And then that's where the turnbuckle mounts install, and they are quick release removable, so you don't have to leave them in all the time, which is really cool. So let's go ahead and get these in and the hardware in on the sides. Check it out. Don't look at the dent in my bumper. I actually just picked up a 2024 with the step in it, used on Facebook Marketplace, but I think the white, even though it's the same name, I think the 2022 is slightly different than the 2024. So I might have to get that bumper painted before I install it, but check out that hitch. Man, that is really nice. So you can slide the turnbuckle attachments right in there, and then you can strap down out here. I think it has 2 different holes depending on how far out you need to come, but the super truss obviously needs to be put together and put in there, but I'm not going to do that until I actually need to tow. Super high quality products from Torklift. Always love their stuff and appreciate them sponsoring the channel. We still do have the Stable load and the North hitch. That's the hitch that goes behind the front bumper. I do think I'm going to install this. I am going to be doing the Ready Lift airbag kit, and I think that replaces the top overload leaf springs. I'm not exactly sure. I've never installed it yet. And I don't know if that is going to work on the truck with the Ready Lift kit. I'm going to install it either way because I haven't ordered that kit yet. And we want to go up north, and I want to minimize how much this is squatting. So for now, I am going to go ahead and install this. All right, guys, we have moved on to getting the overload stable loads installed. We got them all assembled right here. It's pretty straightforward. So what these do is these slide over that overload spring on the bottom. So the first thing we're going to do is use this template. We're going to put it up there on the leaf spring, and we're going to drill some holes so that these can drop down in the holes. So let's get under there and drill some holes. All right, we got our little template there. We got our holes marked. You can see little holes there, so we're going to drill those out a little bit. All right, you can see we got our little recessed holes drilled. So we've got all of our hardware in place. This is going to come up here and slide in, and then what we have to do is twist these and have them fall right in those holes right there. All right, so these have little Allens. They're kind of set screws. We tighten those down so it's nice and snug, and then we threw the hardware on. So what's cool is you can either, once I install airbags, I can air it up and then pull this pin right here, and then these spin and go under and engage the overload leaf springs. So it's cool because they're quick release. So we got this one on. We actually have that other side on. We're going to go ahead and install the one on the front leaf spring, and then we'll jack the truck up. Since I don't have airbags, we'll engage these, and then we'll test fit the camper on. All right, so the last thing for these stable loads is getting the emergency brake line out of the way so it doesn't get hung up. So there's a little bracket right there. Just undo that bolt, undo this bolt, that drops down. Bracket goes in, and then it re-screws in there. So we are ready to jack it up and enable these stable loads and test fit the camper. All right, we're gonna work on getting this bumper removed. We're gonna get this front hitch in. If you can see here, there's 2 15mm bolts there and the same on that side. We're gonna get those out. And then we have 4 18mm right here and then 4 there, so 8 total. And then down on the bottom right here, there's a connector that connects all the electrical for the bumper. We need to unplug that. So let's go ahead and get all this hardware out. All right, we got the bumper off. We got the hitch on a jack right here. We've got these four, 2 on each side that we need to remove. They're another 15. And also this was still connected to the bumper, so I had to remove those as well. So don't forget about the plug right there. And then this plug as far as electrical goes, but gonna get those bolts out and then get this fit into place. All right, we got it all bolted down and torqued. You can see there's 3 bolts on each side, and then there's 1 on the bottom that plate right there bolts to. This thing is solid, so we're gonna go ahead and get the bumper back on, those 8 bolts in the front, the 4, 2 on each side, and connect the couple electricals, and this thing will be set up. All right, one last thing before we can install the bumper. That will hit the air dam, and they have you cut out a hole, but I don't know how I feel about that. I usually end up just removing these anyway, so I'm gonna take it off. I'm gonna see how it all looks, because this does hang down a little bit, but I'm gonna see how it looks, and then if I wanna cut a hole in it, I can cut a hole and then remount it back on. All right, she's all back together. I don't mind seeing the hitch. This truck is stock, so it's kind of low, but this truck is gonna be getting a 3-inch lift and some super singles in the future. Probably not till next year, but that's all to come in the future. Super excited for that. So that will give us some more ground clearance. I am gonna leave the air deflector off for now. You can see, I mean, the F450 one, it hangs down low. You can put the tremor one on, which is a little more sleek and cut a hole. I may figure that out in the future just to hide some of this, but for now, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it off. All right, the next thing we were gonna do is we're gonna get these 2 mated together. Now, earlier in the video, you guys saw we installed the stable loads. So we'll see how much this thing squats. This is an Arctic Fox 1150. We'll see how much it squats without engaging the stable loads. Then we'll jack it up, we'll engage the stable loads. We'll see how much it squats with the stable loads engaged. And we'll give you guys those numbers. I actually just yesterday ordered the Ready Lift dual airbag kit that replaces the overload spring. So I am gonna be installing those before our first trip, but I wanna see how much those stable loads do help on their own. So let's get this beast moved out of the way. We can get the truck backed in. You can see I put a piece of tape there, and I have a piece of tape in the bed to be able to line myself up. This truck is the Platinum, so it does have the rear camera, which does really help. And we do have the jack extensions for the dually setup to be able to clear the fender flare. That dent in that other rear bumper was really bothering me, so I did go ahead and install this 2024. The paint color is a little bit different, but when I do front bumpers and stuff like that and get those paint matched, I will go ahead and get this painted to match the 2022. All right, we got things shuffled around. We've got the camper jacked up. I have the truck right outside. It's like over 100 today. I live in Arizona, so it's really hot. I got to finish getting the rest of the insulation on the doors, but we try to not open these when it's really hot out. So I'm gonna get the truck backed in, close the door, and get it backed under the camper and get this thing test fit. All right, that was my first time doing that. So I got out a bunch of times just to double check everything. We've got it pretty good in here. We obviously need to lower it down, but I wanted to walk around and check everything before I do that. So I'm also going to take a measurement. I'm not trying to be super precise. I'm just going to go from the ground to the bottom of the fender right there. Before we set it down, the stable loads are not active. They're not engaged. So we'll set the camper down. We'll see how much it squats. We'll jack it back up. We'll engage the stable loads. We'll set it back down. We'll see how much of a difference that makes. All right, we got our tape measure here. So we've got 42.5 to the bottom of the fender. So let's set it down. No stable loads engaged. And let's see how much we squat. We're at 39.5. So we squatted 3 inches. Like, that's a lot. I probably wouldn't feel comfortable going on a trip with the camper without some sort of rear support. So let's go ahead and jack it back up, and then we'll engage the stable loads. All right, we got the truck jacked up from the hitch. We got front stable load, rear stable load. So there's a pin right here. Then this other pin pops up. Then that spins around to engage the overload spring. Then you just gotta line the pinhole up, and then that pin drops back down in there. Put the retaining pin on, and then that one is engaged. We'll go around and do all the other 3. All right, we got those stable loads engaged, front and back. We're gonna go ahead and lower this camper back down. We got the jack out of there, so let's see how much it squats with those engaged. All right, we now have 40 3/4. So that's 1 1/4 inches, I believe. I'm gonna have to go back and check the video, but that's a pretty significant improvement. What it's doing is it's engaging the overload springs earlier, having those stable loads in there. So I would actually run it this way. We have our first trip coming up next weekend, and I did order the ReadyLift airbag kit, so I'll probably throw those on just for some extra peace of mind. But yeah, if you have an F450 or any of the Super Duties, check out Torklift Stable Load Kits. So the last thing we're gonna do in this video is get the camper tied down. You can see I've already done this side. Torklift has these new Apex turnbuckles. They have a tension indicator right here. They are super sweet. So let me show you the difference between the new style and the old style. So you still use the threaded hook either style, but these ones don't have a tension indicator. So you would always have this little rubber O-ring that would be on there, and you would kind of use that to gauge the tension. But this new style is super cool. So let's go over to the truck and get this one installed. I've already got this one marked and cut, but I'm gonna go ahead and thread it in to this mark right here to the bottom, and then we'll go ahead and get the tension adjusted. Okay, we've got both hooks on. Now what we do is we take this, and you can see it kind of spins, and it's threading on tighter. So then you want to line them up there. And we're gonna go ahead and pull that. And there's a little groove in there. And once that groove is fully showing, you know you got 300 foot-pounds of torque down. All right, guys, that is gonna do it for this video. I wanna give a huge shout out and thank you to Torklift for sponsoring this video. If you guys need anything camper related, make sure you go over to their website and check out what they have to offer. They offer super high quality products, and their customer service is second to none. Really bummed to see the Kodiak go, but also super excited to start this new build. Thanks so much for being here and following along. We really appreciate it. Drop your thoughts and comments down below. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you on the next video. Later. Thank you.